All right, for the part 2 of the inequalities in slope-intercept form, we're going to go ahead and work through a few of these. My recommendation is, if you're watching this video, to pause it periodically when we start a question, see if you can work it out before I do, and then see if your answer is the same as mine. So looking here, same as it was on our first question, there is a negative on the y, so hopefully you know that that will end up eventually flipping the sign. Now, same thing, got a positive 6x, want to move it to the other side because we want y is, in this case, greater than or equal to mx plus b. And so moving the 6x over here will give us negative y is greater than or equal to. We got negative 6x now since it moved to the other side. And then, of course, a positive 15 since it was already positive. Now, we have a negative on the y, so like we did up here, anytime you have a negative on the y, it's like dividing it by -1 to cancel out the negative. We'll end up flipping the sign. So dividing all these by -1. The difference on this question as it was to number 1 was the b was a negative. In this case, the b is a positive, so it will end up switching it. So negative y divided by -1, negative divided by negative makes it positive. Since I multiplied or divided across the inequality, now turns it into a less than sign. So instead of being greater than or equal to, now it is less than or equal to. We have -6 divided by -1, so we ended up moving the 6 over here, became negative, divided by negative again, and it switched back to positive. And then we have -1 dividing into 15, so we have now -15. All right, now moving to number 4. Go ahead and pause if you want to so you can work it out, see if you can get the same answer. We have the 4x. Difference between the questions we have been solving is now we have a 19 on the y. Okay, we have a 19 on the y. We can't have that either, so when we get down to the end, we'll get rid of it. Canceling out the negative, or canceling out the 4 by subtracting it. So we're going to end up moving the 4x over there, so subtract the 4x. Now we have 19y. Good thing is it is a positive, so we don't have to worry about flipping any signs this time. So we have 19y is less than, and since we got the -4x over here, and then the -6 because it's a -6. Remember, you can't combine these two because that one will have a variable. This one has an x, that one does not. Can't combine those, so you just got to stick them side by side. So we have y is less than mx plus b, which means it could be minus b, it doesn't matter. And the m could be negative, that doesn't matter either. But we can't have this 19 on the y. So since it's being multiplied 19 times y, we're going to divide it by 19, divide it by 19. Since I did it to 1, I must do it to all. You can't just do it to 1 and then cancel it out. It has to cancel with everything. It has to do the same thing to everything. And if it does not, then your answer is going to be lopsided. It's kind of like putting too much weight on one side of a scale and not putting it on the other. All right, or in this case, taking it off. So we got the y by itself. 19 divided by 19 is 1, and the 1 is what we want with the y. So we got y is less than, didn't flip the sign because it wasn't a negative. And then now we got -4x divided by 19. 19 is a prime number, so the only thing that's going to go into 19 is 19 in itself. So it's not going to make the 4 change, but we must put it in. We must put it in the m. Remember, m is rise over run, which is slope. So we want the rise and the run, so we want to leave it in fraction form if possible. So in this case, it's going to be -4, so -4 over 19x, which is your -4, which is your rise, your y, and then your run, which is your 19, your x. And then now we have -6 divided by 19, so -6 over 19. Now, moving on to question number 5. A little bit different. We had the 19 up here with the y. Now we have a negative 10. So kind of the same thing, a little bit different. Looking at y equals mx plus b. So we want to get in slope-intercept form. So remember slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. A little bit more to this question than it was in the last. So we're going to subtract by 7x to get the x to the other side. What I do to one side, got to do to the other. Remember, adding and subtracting, you'll have to do it once to each side. So we have negative 10y is less than, and then since this doesn't have an x and that does, kind of an x, they can't combine, so we got to stick them just side by side. Remember, the x always comes first because it's in slope-intercept form. X comes before the b. Now, we got a negative 10, so remember, anytime you have a negative, it flips the sign. So we're going to divide this by negative 10 to cancel out negative 10 times y. And then when we divide or multiply, you got to do it to everything. So it's not like adding and subtracting where you just do it to once to each side. You got to actually do it to everything. Okay? Now, your y will then become by itself. Since we divided across an inequality by a negative, the inequality flips. And then we have negative 7 divided by negative 10, so negative divided by negative makes it positive, but 7 and 10 don't have anything in common but 1, so therefore it's just 7 over 10. And then now we have negative 5 divided by negative 10. Now 5 does go into 10, so we just can't put it as, remember it's going to be positive, you can't put it as 5 over 10 because it's not simplified. You got to simplify it. So we'll turn into 1/2. So now we have y is greater than 7 over 10x plus 1/2. So y, in this case, greater than mx plus b. All right, now our last question. We have 16x plus 12y is less than or equal to 5. So remember, go ahead and pause if you want to so you can work it out. We have 16, we want it on the other side since it has the x. So minus 16x. Remember, if you add or subtract, you only have to do it once. So we have 12y left over here is less than or equal to, and then we have negative 16x plus 5. Remember, it is a positive 5. You can't combine the 5 and the 16 because the 16 has the x. Remember, this was added or subtracted. It does not change the sign of the inequality if it's added or subtracted. Okay, it's only if you divide or multiply by a negative. And then right now we got to get rid of the 12, so we got to divide it by 12. And remember, if you divide or multiply, you got to do it to everything. So now we have y is less than or equal to, since it wasn't a negative, it doesn't flip the sign. And then we got negative. Now, remember, you want to leave this in slope form. You don't want to put it as a mixed number. I think it's on your IXL, if you actually put it as a mixed number, we'll count it wrong. Just speaking from experience. So 12 goes into 16 one time, but we don't want to do that. Okay, you don't want to turn it into a mixed number. So does 12 and 16 have anything in common? Yes, it does. They both will will be divided by 4. So 12 divided by 4 gives you 3. 16 divided by 4 gives you 4. So you should get 4/3 here. Don't forget your x. And remember, it is a negative divided by a positive, which makes it negative. Most people say, hey, where does the negative go? Does it go to the 4? Does it go to the 3? When you actually graph it, it doesn't really matter. Most of the time, you do want it to go with the numerator, the number on top. And then 5 divided by 12, they don't have anything in common, so that is simplified.